All right, I wanted to give you all a quick update on modifications I have made to my full-size Condor Hudson Bay, and yes, I got its little brother. So in my initial review of the full-size Hudson Bay, I put forth the question, is this a precursor to the Bowie knife? And with further discussion and research, I think the better answer is, well, no, not really. One, if you consider the design of the sandbar knife, a longer blade, slimmer in profile, probably straight-backed, and I have not been able to find a modern production version of a knife like that. If you happen to know of one, definitely let me know. But I think what they were going for here is a representation of Hudson Bay trade knives, and those were produced during the 18th and 19th century. So maybe a great-grandfather of the Bowie, but they were still being produced while the Bowie was evolving. A lot of them were made by Sheffield in England. There are some signature differences between English and French versions, but there's a lot of variation in blade length and shape. So I don't think this is a copy of any particular knife. But in general, they tended to be kind of broad in the blade, rustic looking, simple scales. These were popular for not only trade with native populations, but also for frontiersmen, trappers especially, people who spent significant amounts of time far away from civilization, who needed a stout, sturdy utility knife that they might be able to use in a pinch as a defensive tool that was also affordable. And while this might not be an exact replica of any Hudson Bay trade knife, did Condor get the essence of it? I think they did a reasonably good job. Before we talk about Mini-Me, let's talk about the modifications I made to the Big Brother. Starting at the friendly end. Now, I really liked this knife, but there were a couple of issues I was having with it, well, based on the way I like to use sizable knives. So one thing I did was slightly rounded the grip scales just a little bit to make it fit my hand that much better. But the biggest change on this end was a significant relief cut at the base of the blade. Now, I've seen other YouTubers do this. It's not an original idea, but my particular spin on it is I made a very curved cut. So not only does that allow me to choke up really close to the edge, get that high grip for utility use, but that curvature diffused all those uncomfortable collisions I was getting in thrusting and stabbing. So that was a significant improvement. I highly recommend doing that. On the other end, though, I did change the tip geometry. Definitely described the original as, well, a kind of sharpened shovel when it comes to stabbing and thrusting. So I changed the angle of, well, the primary edge, took down some of that belly just a little bit so it wasn't so wide towards the tip, and then brought the back edge, well, about half an inch, centimeter and change back down the blade, so increased that angle, and put a bit of a bevel on it. It's not sharpened, but I did put a little bit of a beveled swedge on it. That did improve the usefulness of the tip for me. Am I going to make these changes on its little brother? Yeah, of course I am. But before I make any changes to the little brother, let's take a look at it, how it came to me. Starting with the sheath, and I'm going to say this is a concerning failure from Condor. The sheaths on the full size and also the Moonshiner, I really like those. They're very durable and pretty useful. There's some break-in, especially on the Moonshiner, but yeah, really appreciating their quality of sheath, but okay. Same kind of thick leather, same kind of construction, same swiveling belt loop, though everything is scaled down. But okay, you guys have to see this. Maybe this was just a mistake and they sent me the wrong sheath, but there is no way that this sheath is made for this knife. This knife widens out significantly at the belly. This sheath narrows towards the end of the knife. It's opposite shapes. There is no way for me to get this in the sheath more than that far without it starting to cut through the threading. Certainly can't get it all the way in, not without significantly changing, well, the profile of the blade. Out of the box edge, I'm going to say again, not great. It's kind of a trend I'm finding amongst Condor knives. 1075 high carbon steel, that it's a little on the soft side for my tastes. Between 50 and 55 HIC, probably a little closer to 50, which is going to make a sturdy chopper, but it's not going to hold a really keen, fine edge. Now, you've got a full flat grind, but then that terminates in a significant apple-seated secondary bevel, which is really roughly finished. Looks like 60, maybe 80 grit. And against paper, all right, not shaving sharp at all. Really, really toothy. Really toothy. I feel like I've got more of a hatchet here than a knife. Let's try a little cardboard. Yeah, that is... For a knife, it's basically a smaller, finer work utility tool. It's just not. At least not out of the box. Can I improve it? Well, we're going to check that out. But, yeah... kind of disappointing. So yes, obviously I'm going to make some changes, but before I do that, let's take a look at the out-of-the-box build and specs. And the first number I'm going to throw out at you, a little over $70 is what I paid for this at Amazon. So only $6 cheaper than its big brother. And we've already seen that the edge is really disappointing. Consider the competition for field utility knives of this size in that price range. Yeah, But, okay. I did read the specifications. I did actually see one or two side-by-side pictures, but I guess I just wasn't prepared for having the two in hand side-by-side. I guess I was expecting a broader blade or something like that. But yeah, this looks almost like the companion knife for kukri in comparison. So, but all right, doing the numbers. I feel like this is a situation where the knife just feels and looks smaller than it is. Maybe I've just been spoiled from handling all those really large knives. But the blade length is 4 7/8 inches long, nearly 5 inches long, 12 centimeters. It is 1.5 inches or 3.75 centimeters wide, and it is a full 5 millimeters thick. That might be a bit thick for the blade length, though. That might be one of the issues I'm going to have, putting a good edge on it. But it's definitely going to make something sturdy. But is this going to be any kind of chopper? Okay, I'll see if I can put that to any kind of testing whatsoever. But first I'm going to go ahead and do my modifications before I take it out and run my gauntlet. Now grip length, the full length is 4 inches, so it is definitely smaller and shorter than the full size one, 10 centimeters. Overall length, 8 7/8 inches, about 22.5 centimeters. Weight, 7.7 ounces, 218 grams. Point of balance is just right there at the top of the grip scale. In hand, well, there's a couple of things I definitely want to change about it, but I feel like it's got similar potential to its big brother. Let me do some things and see what I can, well, create here. And from your perspective, I'll be right back. All right. Same modifications as its big brother. Is it better? Absolutely. Is it great? Is it even good? All right, starting on the friendly end, I did round the scales and give the top end a little bit of a taper so I could choke up more comfortably based on the shape of my hands. Speaking of choke up, yes, relief cut with a curve in it. Then I took it to my pelt for stabbing and thrusting. Grip geometry is indeed really slippy, but in slipping, the collisions with that now curved surface are not painful. So better, I definitely think that is a worthwhile modification. As for the sharp end, well, I did improve the secondary bevel, made it, well, a little bit wider and keener, so it is slicier, but yeah, the blade thickness is not doing it any favors. A knife this size, I feel like, should be really, really slicey. This one feels like I'm using a hatchet or tomahawk blade. Speaking of sharpness. All right, tip. I reduced the belly and brought back the back edge, gave it a little bit of a bevel, a swedge. Before I did that, I tried to use the original tip for some utility tasks, basically piercing and opening some packaging, and it was like using a shovel to do it. Didn't really work at all. Now it's working for that. Is it the best piercing tool? Yeah. But hey, it also helped it fit in its sheath a lot better. I did a little stretching to it, but it fits. I am still really worried because that edge, that belly is pressing into the stitching right there. So I don't know how well that's going to hold together. I just really don't think this is the sheath for this knife. But back to the knife itself. Like its big brother, it feels really good in hand, and then I took it out to my other tests, hacking, slashing into hard bamboo to see if I can induce chip or a roll in the edge. Edge is fine. Carved on some boards, and did it do it? Yes. Was it the best tool doing that, especially for a knife this size? Absolutely not. I would certainly pick almost any other knife over this one to do that kind of cutting, carving, whether we're talking about wood, cardboard, or whatever. Chopped on the boards. I don't have a lot to work with here in terms of length or mass. Did a little bit of batoning. Yeah, I had to use a pretty small piece of wood because I don't have a lot to work with. Then I tried a little finer carving, tried to make some curls, and yeah, I could do it. It could do it. But I feel like a lot of other knives this size would do it a whole lot better and easier. Again, I felt like I pulled the head off one of my tomahawks and was using that instead of a knife. Now, the upside is it feels great in the hand like its big brother. It just moves for me martially, and it's certainly sturdy enough that I don't think it's going to fail in any use I put to it that way. Also transitions really nicely both in the pinch flip and the finger twirl, so yeah, it feels good, moves good for a knife of this size, but again, I feel like this is definitely more of a field utility tool, and in that, all right, I feel like what it's reminding me of anyway is a misadventure I had in my youth where I decided it would be awesome to shave with a straight razor. It'd be all old-timey and cool. And I quickly found out just wasn't worth it and never went back. And I'm kind of there with this as well. If you really like the look and the feel of the Big Brother, which is why I got this, you might want to check it out. It's got those features, the aesthetic appeal and the hand feel. But functionality as a practical knife of this size, I'm going to say no, especially for the money. So, yeah. All right. Now, Condor does make a lot of other knives of about this size. If you happen to have this knife or another Condor of this size, let me know what you think of yours. But I think it is time I got back on my big Martial knife exploration journey. So until then, thanks as always for watching, following said journey, subscribing to the channel, liking the videos, and I do hope to see you back for, well, hopefully something better.